Alrighty, let's get started, chat. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. Just a reminder that although I am a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. So if y'all have a concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. Everything we discuss on stream today is just for entertainment or educational purposes only. Happy Friday, everybody. Was that Sandstorm by Darude? I don't think so. When the guide comes out, what a great question. I don't know. My part of the guide is, well, not done, but the part that I was supposed to do is I'm done. So filming finished actually several weeks ago. So we're in post-production now and the QA process and things like that. We're developing our logic and whatnot. It's looking pretty cool, TBH. Let me see if I can find yeah. So this is what the guide looks like right now. We're running into some interesting problems because this is getting very complicated. So I know this sounds kind of weird, but like, why do we do it this way? Right? So here's depression, here's meditation, here's anxiety, and here's ADHD. So this is kind of weird, but like, so we talked about this internally and we're like, can we just make it linear, right? Because that's what like courses do. Like if you look at like gamers class or master class or whatever, people are like, oh, just like make it a straight line. Like it's easy. But this is the key thing. If you look at any one of these problems, so let's look at the guide to doing stuff, okay? Which I guess starts here, okay? The thing is, there's a lot of stuff to understand about motivation and doing stuff, but all of that stuff isn't relevant to everyone. And one of the biggest problems on the internet is that it isn't specific, right? So like if I make a blog post about 5 tips for motivation, like some of that stuff may apply to you, some of that stuff may not apply to you. Different people need different things. And especially if you look at, for example, the neuroscience of ADHD, we actually go into different parts of the brain. So we cover like a lot of different neuroscience. And in my experience as a clinician, these parts of the brain are not equally affected by all people. So for example, like some people with ADHD really struggle with social function, and there's like a neuroscience component to that. So how do you deal with that? So the whole point of clinical training is that you learn a bunch of stuff, but you don't like use everything for all patients, right? So let's just take a quick look. So this is Kaufman's Clinical Neurology for Psychiatrists. That's what this book is, okay? So like we read this book, right? And there's a bunch of stuff in here, and there's like good stuff in here. The thing is, not all of this is going to be relevant for every person. So the whole point of having a clinician is that you have a human being who knows all the stuff and can apply just what you need. And what I realized is that our information dissemination doesn't have that quality. So it's like either generic or you have a human being. And so the reason we built it this way is because we're trying to figure out like, okay, how do I, when I sit down with a human being, how do I think about them? And what I realized is that in my clinical process, like, or even non-clinical process, right? So even from a coaching perspective, this is what I'm doing. So it's like, okay, so if there's like clinical stuff going on, if someone comes to me and says, I'm not motivated, or I have difficulty, let's say I have difficulty focusing. So then it's like, okay, like first we've got to understand like clinically, I guess you guys can't see that. So there's like a clinical track where we talk about this thing called ADHD. But for some people who aren't motivated, it has nothing to do with a clinical illness. It actually has a lot to do with like basics of like neuroscience and motivation and dopamine reward circuitry and hedonic circuitry and dopamine reset/detox and how our brain makes like different kinds of calculations. It also involves things like resistance or ego. This isn't actually a clinical illness. This person's ego, oh, I'm a gifted kid. And so if you're a gifted kid, what does that mean? That means that you can't do anything that you're bad at, right? Because then you're not gifted anymore. So what that ends up doing is like you can't learn new skills because while you're learning a skill, you're no longer a gifted kid, right? You're a noob just like everybody else. And so like your ego can't handle being a noob. And so you end up quitting before, like immediately after you start. So you have no follow through. And it all comes down to something like ego. And then there's all kinds of other stuff. Like there's like weird spiritual stuff. There's stuff about shaping your environment and how to set appropriate goals, because these are skills that people don't teach us. So people are asking, how far is the guide coming? I did my part. My part was making this and writing it all out. It's about, 100,000 words worth of scripts and filming it. We've also got some other random stuff over here. Like basic stuff, like that's linked to meditation. Like, how do you concentrate? How do you learn the skill of concentration? So I realized I was doing this with my kid recently, where I was telling her to focus. And then it occurred to me that like no one ever taught her how to focus, right? If you tell people to focus all the time, like sit down and study, little Timmy, little Sally, little Krishnakant. But we tell people how to do that, but we never teach people like literally how to focus their mind on one thing, how to not get distracted. So Pratyahara, for example, is a branch of meditation that is all about reducing distractions of the mind. And the interesting thing is that normally you learn Pratyahara before you learn how to concentrate. So the first thing that you need to learn is actually like how to like not get distracted. Anyway, so we're going to see this we can't keep this up, by the way, chat. This isn't going to last. Like, there's just no way. If we continue to make guides, the logical connections from a programming standpoint are going to become way too complicated, right? Like it's almost like a neural map of my mind. Like, that's what the guide is really, that's what it was supposed to sort of be. Like, how do I, that I tried to take my knowledge and like map it out. Yeah, it's actually inspired by it's inspired by video games. Not PoE specifically, but I think even predating PoE was the inspiration for this was actually FF10 Sphere Grid. If y'all are like old people. Yeah, anyway, we have stuff to do. Okay, I got distracted. Lol. Okay, so I want to tell y'all something that's super cool that's going on. So we recently started something called the Touch Grass campaign on our Discord channel. And like, sometimes I've seen posts recently, or I see these posts a lot on the internet about like, people like upset me on the internet. And so what people will sort of do is they'll say like, okay, go touch grass, right? So like people on the internet, and the way that people respond to each other on the internet is not actually real life. That perspective, I think, is a little bit simplistic, because I think actually what's happening is the internet is becoming real life. So this is where, for example, if you look at dating, like dating apps are actually replacing in-person interactions in the first stage of relationships. So what we decided to do is some awesome people on our Discord and in our community, this is their brainchild, decided to put together a campaign in the month of July to help our community go out and do stuff. So I can stream on Twitch, and you can watch videos on YouTube and all that good stuff, and you can learn about yourself. But at the end of the day, it's still you sitting in front of a screen. Even in terms of, that's part of the reason that we developed a coaching program, is because like we wanted to help people actually work through their individual problems and like figure out, okay, what's going on with your motivation, set goals for yourself, hold yourself accountable, figure out, what is your ego, what is your identity that gets in the way of things, like do all of that individual kind of deep work. So we developed a coaching program. The thing is, those are like two ends of the spectrum. Even in terms of coaching, there's a shortcoming, right? Because at the end of the day, let's say you spend 1 hour a week with your coach, they're formulating goals, you're developing a game plan, you're sort of executing on some of that stuff, but like it's still 1 hour a week with your coach. There are a lot of health benefits to doing things like going out. Plant aerosols can be good for feelings of anxiety. Vitamin D deficiency can make you more vulnerable to COVID and make you more vulnerable to depression. So at some point, we got to get people to go out and do things. And so that's what the Touch Grass campaign is about. And so what I want to do for a few minutes is actually share with y'all some of this stuff. So this is our submissions channel for the Touch Grass campaign. And what we want to do, let me see. Yeah, it's over here. Is like, so the Touch Grass campaign involves, it's essentially a photo challenge to get people going outside. And basically like the rank number one on the leaderboard at the end of the contest gets a merch store gift card, free access to Dr. K's guide. I guess I'm going to sign a secret item for them. And top 5 on the leaderboard get free access as well. The other thing is, I think our winner randomly picked at the end of the contest also gets all of the above rewards. So there's like number 1 on the leaderboard and a random winner. So if you just participate at all, there's a chance you can win. A number 1 rule of the challenge is pick or it didn't happen. You don't have to show your face, right? So we want to preserve anonymity. Please don't edit pictures, things like that. But I just want to show you all the submissions. So this is what I love about our community. I wish there's some way I can zoom in. How do you zoom into Discord? Okay. So like someone cleaned their room. Like this is fantastic. I don't know exactly what this is a picture of. I guess it's watch the sunset, but that's pretty cool. Someone is petting something. Someone got a new haircut. Congratulations. Someone touched grass. Great. Go on a long walk. Awesome. Meditate in the park. Fantastic. Completed vibe to music in the park. Also fantastic. Go on a long walk. Cool. Right? Find street art. Awesome. And the thing is, like, I don't know if you guys can see this. I guess you can't see this on the side, but you'll notice that there are tons of these. Start learning a new language. Like, how awesome is that? This looks like Devanagari, right? So this person seems to be learning Hindi or Sanskrit or something like that. That's cool. Order your favorite dish on the menu. That looks delicious. Make music. Fantastic. So this is like, what I like about this, water a plant. This is cool. Pet a plant. Okay. Make a summer playlist. Make music. Climb a tree. Wow. Dude, that's dope. Take a close-up pic of tree bark. That's very cool. Observe your shadow in the sun. Like, that's pretty meditative. That's neat, right? Walk barefoot on grass. Hug a tree. Walk barefoot. Make fresh lemonade. I think it's, or make fresh juice. Find street art. And this is walk barefoot in the sand, touch sand with both hands. Touch sand, pet a plant. Plant petters. Plant petters. Make ice cream. That's really cool. Donate old or unused clothing. That's awesome. So, visit a waterfall. Whoa, dude. That's a cool challenge. Observe the sky during the day. Like, look at that. That's great. Tree huggers, touching grass. Someone is grinding out all these at the same time. Collect 5 unique leaves. That's cool. Pet a plant. So this just makes me happy. Like, this is when I started Healthy Gamer. And by the way, this goes on and on and on. Okay. So people have been doing this for a while. So look at that. Fresh juice. Go swimming. That's great. Pet your pet. Clean your room. Look at that, chat. Fantastic. Look at that gaming rig, dude. Have an IRL movie night with friends. That's awesome. Wait, this actually looks like a theater somewhere. So this is fantastic. Like, look at this. Look at the progress this person has made. Right? Like, build a sandcastle. Cool. Going swimming. Awesome. I need to upload my own going swimming. Playing a sport with a friend. Great. Right? Like, explore a new place you've never been before. Take a cold shower. Ouch. Oh, man, that's tough. Make a dirt/grass hut IRL. That's great. Go on a date with another person. Take a pic of a wild animal. So this is where, awesome. Make music. Like, this is cool. Watch the night sky. Awesome. Visit your local museum. Okay. That looks like quite the museum. My point here is that, like, so I love this challenge. It's one of our, so I think for some reason, like, our Discord has really been, like, our mods and team on Discord have really been doing an awesome job recently. And, like, this is, so if we want to put together our lives, we've got to meet you where you're at. And that's on the internet. But the goal of coming to this stream and, like, being a part of this community is to actually leave. That's the goal, right? And if there's one thing that separates us from a cult, it's that the goal is to actually leave. And maybe that, this is what we want. Like, we're here to help you. I'm here to help you in whatever way that I can, educate you, I guess. And then, like, at some point, though, y'all have to go out and start living your life, right? And we're not asking you to leave anytime soon. So hang around for a little while, maybe pay it forward a little bit. But this is a place where we want you to build a life that's worth living. And then go live that life. That's actually the mission of this community. And when we started it, we were, like, trying to figure out, like, some kind of new, like, cool name. Like, oh my God, like, let's come up with, like, Neurobrain, Mind Champ, Champ Neuro. There was like a set of prefixes and suffixes that we could use when we were trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to be? But at the end of the day, we're not sort of like an abstinence only sort of perspective, right? It's like technology can be a healthy part of your life, but it should be a part of your life. It shouldn't be all of your life. And what we love to do more than anything else is help you build a life that's worth living. And if you're at the point where you can't clean your room, that's actually totally fine. If all you can do is listen to some guy talk on the internet, if we can sort of, like, if you're just watching YouTube videos or whatever, just like sitting around, like, listening to stream, hopefully we can influence you a little bit that way. That's totally fine. If you're not ready to go out and do something, don't go out and do something. And at some point, if you're ready to do a little bit more, join our Discord. If at some point you're ready to do a little bit more, go out and touch grass. Do parts of this touch grass challenge. We're not going to get anything out of it. The only thing that people are going to get out of it is what you put into it. This touch grass challenge is a chance for you to go and look at the night sky and get away from all of these screens and just look up at the sky that human beings have been looking up at that same sky for literally millions of years. There is a piece of history out there. Who knows what else is out there, right? We have like these cool telescopes that are getting us new pictures now and stuff like that. Like, who knows what's out there? But you can look out there and you can wonder at that just the way that everyone else does. And then what so-and-so tweeted and how someone responded and all that kind of stuff, it all becomes less important when you're just like stargazing. And what's happened is that our life has been dominated by like artificial stuff. We as a society have been taught that a lot of stuff is important that actually isn't important. Right? So-and-so got banned from Twitter. This thing happened on Twitter. Like, that's not real life. And so we try to teach that to y'all through meditation, right? That's where you can connect with yourself a little bit. We've got stuff like this on Discord. For those of you that are really interested in sort of developing like a concrete plan and figuring out what you are when you're really ready for a higher level of self-work, that's why we have a coaching program, right? So we recognize that some people are just at the, I'm just like kind of like curious about it. I don't want to commit to anything. I don't want to do anything. I just want to learn, which is totally fine. Some of y'all are at the stage where like, okay, I want to do a little bit more, which is what Discord is for. And for people who are interested in sort of going, like really sort of figuring out, okay, I need someone's help and I'm willing to put in time and energy on a week-to-week basis to improve our life, that's what coaching is for. We also have dabbling kind of stuff too. So the Social Sandbox on our Discord is one of the best events that we've ever had, just super cool. So this is like a place that you can go that's run by an HG coach, completely free, by the way. And just a chance for y'all to learn about communication skills and practice communication skills. So if you're just like struggling to be a better communicator, or you're shy, or you just need practice with strangers on the internet before you go out in the real world, that's why we have programs like that, or workshops like that, I guess is a better way to put it. So we're doing what we can, but at the end of the day, we can only do so much. And the most important person in this process is actually you. So what are you going to do? You going to go out and touch grass? You going to meditate today? Good luck. Yeah. Yalet is asking me. Yes. Seiko is asking me. Yes. Hendrix is asking me. Yes. You are the most important part. Right? And Half Bunny's already done both. Awesome. Yeah, brush your teeth, also floss. Okay, so the other thing that we're doing today is we're going to have actually a call-in stream. So we're going to just answer questions and just have conversations with people on our Discord. So let's go ahead and hop to that. Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. Before we hop to that. I gotta take my notes so I don't lose track of stuff. Okay, we'll start with this. Gotta get the iPad in case I need to screen share and do some teaching. Okay, so let's get started. Testing, 1, 2, 3. 1. I hope my speakers work. Hoodie is cozy. So I live down south in the southern United States, and it's hot here. The thing is, I'm like cold-blooded, and so we keep it pretty cold in the house, or colder for me. And so I'm like, I wear some kind of hoodie or sweater or whatever, basically like 365 days a year. Can we test sound again?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Testing.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3.
Let's get started. Tech Teller, huge congrats on setting up the Touch Grass Challenge.
Thank you. It was team effort. All right. Let's get the first caller in.
Let's do it. Hello.
Oh, hello. Hi.
I don't hear anything. Is that me?
No, I think it
That may
might
be
be.
you.
Yep, that's
I
me.
can
Can you
hear.
hear me?
Yeah,
Oh,
try again.
I can. He cannot.
Oh my god.
okay. Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
can you count to 10 for me?
Oh yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
No.
7. No.
No. I was hearing it, but I have to like hold my. Okay, keep talking.
Okay. I think it was in 8,
Okay, good.
9. Okay.
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 Uh, Hold on a second. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
find.
Oh my God. This is so exciting.
Okay, I got it. Go ahead.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Um, Hi. My name is. I mean, my Discord name is Ana Karenina, but you can call me Karen.
Okay, got it.
Um, I'm from Mexico. I'm an illustrator,
Okay.
and and just to I don't know if that's enough introduction.
Sure. Welcome,
Okay,
Karen.
thank you. Um, well, now about the question.
Sure.
I about how I feel about my life. Well, I'm actually very happy with my work life. I do what I love, and I'm financially stable. The problem is my personal life. I have a lot to learn and improve. I'm currently very dependent emotionally and seriously considering to ask for a clinician to diagnose me. But I'm also very dramatic when I'm feeling anxious. So I don't know how much of it is my anxiety talking or reality, which is why I tend to mix up both quite often. Um, I'm scared of being alone in the future because of this.
Okay.
My friend circle is actually small, and I worry that I might push my loved ones away if they get tired of me. I edited that last part because then I realized that it was also my anxiety, worrying about the future because I know. I mean, my friend circle is um is is form of people that I trust very much, and I know. I mean, they've been helping me a lot, and that's why I'm happy with my work life because my sister and my friend they really support me. But I feel like I just started trying to change and being a better person just because I depend too much on them, and I just like base my opinions on what they say, and it's like I'm always looking for someone to depend on.
Defend what?
I mean, sorry, to depend
Oh,
on.
okay, I see. Okay. So when
Yeah.
you say you're emotionally dependent, can you help me understand what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, um, for example, when I buy something, I'm always waiting to see how they react to what I buy or to what I watch or what I say to see if it's right. I mean, if I see that they like what I buy, what I like, then I think it's right.
Okay.
And
So
yeah, and I never question it.
I see. And what do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's a problem because I mean they've been actually trying to help me with that, doing things like just asking me to say my opinion before them. But I see that I'm always like anxious, waiting. Like it's very tiring because I'm always like trying to guess it. If I don't know what they think, I'm trying to guess,
Yep.
and I can never be relaxed. I'm always worrying about other people, what other people think, and it's very frustrating.
I can imagine. It sounds like you want to be able to be comfortable in your own skin and be able to make your own choices and be confident in something because you like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very tiring. I was about to ask, what's the problem with wanting other people's approval? But it sounds to, I mean, can you see other? I'll just ask anyway. What's the problem with wanting other people's approval? Because you think of it as a
That.
problem, right? It's just that it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
tiring. And okay, so
Yeah.
let's try to understand a couple of things. One is, I think if you haven't gotten clinically evaluated, that's a great first step. And at the same time, I think that sometimes we think that getting a clinical evaluation or getting therapy will fix all of our problems. But what I really find therapy is useful for is helping us fix our own problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea for you to get evaluated if you're concerned about it. And this is the kind of thing where I think most human beings should probably at some point just get, evaluated, almost because we sort of do this with physical health, where we'll screen people or we'll have annual physicals, right? We just want to make sure that everything is working okay. The interesting thing is that even though mental health is a part of our health and well-being, it's not something that we screen for or sort of check in about on a regular basis. So I think that's a good idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the reason why I hadn't considered it before is that I was worried that I might get if I get a bad psychologist that tries. I mean, I worry that I might try to depend on my psychologist.
Yeah. So it's
like my yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of tricky, right? Because it's here you are depending on your friends. But if you get someone who's really, really good at emotionally supporting you, it's almost more addictive. And then you're going to depend on your psychologist because they're so good at emotionally supporting you.
Yeah, exactly.
So in a weird way, seeing a psychologist could actually make your problem worse.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. That, and then the question is, and I think there's a lot here to talk about, Karan, and I'd love to try to break down a couple of things for you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first is, I'm so glad that you shared what your concerns are about seeing a mental health professional, because that sort of makes sense, right? If my problem is emotional dependence and my goal is emotional independence, you're to see someone who is a professional at helping people who are emotionally dependent may make me professionally dependent. That's problem number one.
Yeah, totally.
So problem number two is, you're emotionally, let's say, dependent on your friends. And then you're kind of thinking but if I don't become independent, I'm going to burden my friends. And then what if they get tired of me and I'm not being a good friend, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But then the question is that your anxiety or is that legitimate? Right? So
well, yeah, that's right.
It's I don't even know, if I say this is my anxiety and it's not real, then what I could end, but if I'm wrong, I'm just going to end up messing up all my relationships.
Yeah.
But if it is my anxiety, I shouldn't give in to that, because that's me giving into my anxiety. And then I'm looking to them for reassurance. And then that's just causing, that's making the problem worse.
Yeah.
And so that's the tricky thing, right? So even if we think about the therapist there, it's what's anxiety and what isn't? Because seeing a therapist, is that, is that a legitimate worry or is that my anxiety?
Yeah.
Because I can imagine that you maybe feel a little bit stuck or paralyzed.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, that sounds tough. Okay. So let's try to help you with this, okay?
Thank you.
So the first thing to understand, so we're going to talk about a couple of practical things, and then we're going to talk about some more root sort of understanding the mind. So
Okay.
So in order for you to need reassurance from other people, so let me ask you this, Karan. Why do people need reassurance from other people?
Well, in my case, thanks to the guide and your videos, and my friends, of course, I realized that I want I need reassurance because I always doubt what I'm doing. I never know if what I'm doing is right or wrong, and I always want to be right. I want to make sure that I don't make mistakes.
Okay. So there are two important things there. The first is, where did you get the idea that, like, where does your doubt in yourself come from?
Well,
So human beings usually aren't born doubting, right? So if you think about a child will like do all kinds of stupid stuff because they don't really have the capacity for doubt. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
have a sense of when you started to, like, have you always been this way, or did you really start to become pretty anxious and doubt yourself at a particular time in your life?
I feel like it was when I was a little child. Um, I it comes from both of my parents. I feel like in a way it was always very confusing, which was what of what I did was right or wrong. The rules were always changing, and whenever I did something that my mother would think it was wrong, she would like, if it was during a conversation, for example, she would like give me like little, not really hurtful, but little kicks, just like to tell me under the table, to tell me like, you should stop. And I feel like I'm always looking for that from other people, like I didn't even know that was something that was happening to me until recently, when I told my sister that during a conversation that I thought she was trying to tell me something was wrong, and she was like, "Oh no, I just have a tick. I wasn't trying to tell you anything."
Yeah.
And that was when I realized that something was wrong. And yeah, I
Good.
feel like since then I'm always like looking for someone to kick me under the table and tell me to stop or
Yeah.
do something else.
So I think there are a couple of really important things. I think that's a very important story. And Karan, I applaud you for doing the kind of internal work to make that discovery. So that makes my job really easy. You've already figured it out. So let's understand a
Yeah.
couple of other things. So you're trying to not make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So what makes something right and what makes something wrong?
I mean, I guess there's not really something right or wrong. I know that I have a very black and white vision. So, um I guess it just depends on what I think is right or wrong.
Well, so I think that's what's really confusing is what I'm hearing is that when you grew up, you were taught that there was right and wrong. The problem is that
Yeah.
no one ever like told you what the rules were ahead of time. Right? So imagine I
Yeah.
have like a pet and I don't tell the pet where it's allowed to use the bathroom. And then
Okay.
like one day it uses the bathroom and I yell at it. And then so the pet feels bad. And the next day it uses the bathroom somewhere else and like I don't yell at it. And it can never figure out the rules of the game.
Yeah, poor dog.
Right? And so what I'm
Yeah.
hearing from you is that you don't know ahead of time what the rules of the game are. And so the
Yeah.
only thing, in the same way that your mom used to give you kicks under the table to tell you when you screwed up, you're still looking for external people to tell you what the rules of the game are because you don't know what
Yeah.
they are. Like,
Yeah, totally.
right? And then when I ask you about it, like, what are the rules of the game? You're like, well, there aren't really rules for the game. And you're correct. And that's why it's so damn confusing.
Yeah.
Like if you buy a shirt and you're like, I don't know if this is a good shirt or a bad shirt, and you're waiting for your friend to say, oh, that's a great shirt. Because like there's no, is
Yeah.
it a good shirt or a bad shirt? Like, I don't know. You don't know. Like, I don't think you can, like, it's a shirt.
Yeah.
And so I think the reason it's so hard for you is because you're playing a game that can't be won, right? You're looking for an objective right answer in a world that doesn't have objective right answers. And why
Yeah.
are you doing that? It's actually because you were conditioned to do that. Like you tried to figure things out and you're sitting there and you're just talking. And then your mom is like kicking you under the table. And so your brain learned at some point that like, okay, the one thing, and so then imagine what did you start doing with your mom When she started kicking you under the table, you had no clue why. What do you end up doing? What's the one strategy that you can do that won't get you kicked?
Stop. Or sometimes I was just like, I'm gonna be a rebel and do what I want, but I just ended up doing the opposite.
Good.
But still feeling bad, you know?
Yeah, because you want to do something, right? So that's really
Yeah.
important. So the winning strategy is to do nothing. Because if you don't say anything and you're paralyzed and you don't act, right, which is what an anxious person does, we're never going to take a chance. Because if you never
Yeah.
take a chance, you're never in danger. But
Yeah.
then what is that rebel? That rebel is the part of you that wants something, right? There is actually a part of you that knows what you like, knows what you care about. And then what happened to that part?
Well, I think that part it's like when I get tired of just doing what other people ask me to do, or well, what I think they ask me to do, because they really don't ask me anything. I just assume what they want or what they think is right. So when I get to like a boiling point, I just do whatever, just the opposite thing, or just something like impulsive. Sometimes it's just like, oh, if in this moment I want to buy this super expensive thing, I'm gonna buy it. It doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter if I have doubts about buying it. It doesn't. Nothing matters. I'm just gonna do it and screw everything.
Yeah, right?
And yeah, yeah.
So, Karen,
And then I feel terrible.
let me ask you something. How do you keep something from boiling over?
Well, I guess I just have to turn off the heat or just like open the valve.
Yeah, right?
Just
So
let
like
it
if I'm cooking
go.
something, let's say I'm making rice and it's about to boil over, what do I do?
Well, you how can I don't know how to say that. Like you just take the lid off
Yeah,
or
perfect.
just turn off the heat.
Right? So the only way that your rebel, the only way that your desires can break through is to break through. You don't let them out in a small way at all. So the only way that your desires actually come out is when you get so frustrated with feeling stuck and needing people's approval that you're like, screw it. And then all of your desires come out in probably a slightly unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And so I think the thing here, and I think chat has sort of figured this out already, but I think this is the kind of thing where, like, first and foremost, I think you've got to let your rebel out a little bit because you actually do know what you want. Right? So
Well, I don't really know. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
really know sometimes.
Oh, yeah, you know. You just doubt yourself.
Oh well, yeah, yeah, that's right.
Right? So it's
Yeah,
not
I was. Yeah.
so this is something to understand. What you want, your mind knows. The question, the doubt is separate,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Like, I want a slice of pizza. Should I eat a slice of pizza? The desire is still clear, though. Does that make sense? I want the slice of pizza.
Yeah.
Slice of pizza.
Well,
Is
that's
it-
right. Yeah.
Is it a good idea or a bad idea? Is it right or wrong to eat the slice of pizza? That's where your doubt really comes in, because once again, you're looking for an objective right or wrong. And it's
Yeah.
like, you can, like, you know, could you eat healthier things than pizza? Sure. But you're also like, Karen, you're doing pretty good. You've got a job that you like. You're working on yourself. It sounds like you're working really hard. It sounds like you're spending a lot of time studying yourself and learning about yourself. And I'm kind of feeling like you deserve a slice of pizza or you deserve a nice purse from time to time. What do you think?
I feel like I should say yes, but I feel like, what if I'm just doing it? I think I'm starting to worry again about.
Good.
that.
So keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I was judging what I wanted, if I deserved it or not.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So you're on the right track, right? So here's what I want you to do. So first of all, huge props for noticing that, but what if? Right? So can you finish the thought for us? Like, what were you thinking when I was telling you, you deserve it, Karen, you're a good person. You deserve to be happy in life. And what does your mind say?
saying you're not good enough yet to get that slice of pizza.
Right? So
You're
okay,
gonna
let's
get it when you know when you're good.
yeah. So and what do you have to do to be good enough? How do we satisfy that part of your mind?
It's never gonna be satisfied.
You should be
Yeah.
teaching.
It's so frustrating because I feel like I've been told this by my friends before, and I always let my mind win. I always let the doubt just get the better of me.
And what do you think about that?
Well, I think that probably is because I never pay attention to what I'm doing. I just let it win. I
Yeah.
don't I
So
don't fight it.
I would, I think you fight it a lot, but, but I think this is the kind of thing where, Garan, you've got to, so you've got to be careful there because that thought, right? So I've heard this 1,000 times. Why am I
Yeah,
so idiotic that I never learn? What are you doing
that's
there?
right.
You're kicking yourself under the table.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so like I think this is where now the next thing that you can sprinkle in here is going to be a little bit of compassion. Like it's okay to lose to your mind a lot, right? Like it's a journey. You've come a long way, you have a long way to go, and your doubts are there for a reason. This is something very important to understand. Your doubts are actually there to
Okay.
protect you, right? Because what does the doubt say? Does the doubt say, oh, you're dumb, you're stupid? No, the doubt says, if you do this, you'll wind up being hurt. You see that?
Yeah.
If I'm too emotionally dependent on my friends, I'm going to drive them away and then I'll be alone. So your doubt is actually trying to protect you. It's trying to look out for you. It's
Yeah.
like so it's not your enemy actually. Right? So this is where I want you to change a little bit about the way that you talk to yourself and sort of notice that, it's like a guard dog that's trying to protect you. And also, not everyone who visits you is an enemy that the guard dog needs to be barking about.
It does feel like that.
Right? So,
Yeah.
and that's where, like, like if you want to calm down a guard dog, if you want to teach a guard dog to trust, you don't do it by kicking the dog every time it barks. That's going to amp up its stress. It's you pet the dog and you're like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. I'm worried about eating a slice of pizza. It's okay that like I'm worried that this is going to be the beginning of the end. And like, there's a part of me that really wants this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to eat a slice of pizza and I'm going to tell the guard dog to watch while I eat this slice of pizza. And I'm going to ask the guard dog at the end, was it okay that I ate this slice of pizza? I want you to talk to yourself in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's operating on old information. So what you have to do is give it a new experience. So get that slice of pizza, sit down, eat it. The guard dog is going to start barking and be like, hey, just let me finish the slice of pizza and then you let me know if this was a mistake or not.
That sounds great.
You've really come a long way. I'm honestly very impressed, Garan.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't do this by myself. Thank you so much to you and Healthy Gamer and everyone who comes on stream. I feel like I learn a lot from all of you, and I'm very lucky to have my sister and my friend, which always support me and ask me, I mean, such good questions. Of course, I feel like now I'm ignoring what I did.
What?
But yeah, I thank you.
So let me ask you one last question, Garan. Did you help someone else today by coming on?
I think I did. I mean,
How does
I
that
haven't.
feel?
It feels great. I hope that if anyone is listening, you're not alone.
Thank you so much for coming on. You're making me tear up.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Take care. Seriously, I appreciate you. Like I'm so because like I think you did a great job of sharing with other people. Like I mean, I think a lot of people have the kinds of thoughts and struggles you do, which is what we're all about. So thank you very much for coming. And good luck and
thank
enjoy
you.
yourself.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay. So let's just summarize real quick, okay? So anxiety is super tricky. So the problem with anxiety is sometimes we've got like social anxiety, right? And we're like, okay, if I'm emotionally dependent on my friends, like I need my friends for emotional support. And like, that's okay. Like that's what friends are kind of there for. But then it's like, if you become too dependent on them, you're going to drive them away. And then the problem is like, well, wait a second, hold on. Is that my anxiety telling me that I'm going to drive them away? So that's not like actually false and I'm not going to drive them away. But what if that is, so if it's my anxiety, I'm going to ignore it and I'm going to continue being emotionally dependent. But that could sabotage your relationship. And so then you have to like stop for a second and try to figure out, okay, wait, is that my anxiety? So like, should I become more emotionally independent or is this my anxiety or what? And even in terms of like, and so it's kind of tricky, right? Because you don't know, like, is giving in to your anxiety being emotionally dependent or is giving into your anxiety not being emotionally independent? It's like, I don't know. Am I supposed to be like conquer my anxiety and be a better friend? Or am I supposed, it's just impossible to figure out. And so that's where there are like a couple things to keep in mind. The first is understand that your doubt, essentially requiring reassurance from other people, comes from a doubt in yourself. Right? So when you don't have faith in your own conclusions, your mind naturally goes to someone else. That's the only way it works. The tricky thing is if you're plagued with this cycle of doubt in yourself, chances are that cycle of doubt was instilled in you. And what we heard today was that there's essentially like a set of experiences where like our brain doesn't know what the rules are. Anytime a child grows up in a situation where the rules keep changing, they can't figure out what's right and wrong. And if you can't figure out what's right and wrong, you can't act with confidence because are you doing the right thing or are you doing the wrong thing? If you know you're doing the right thing, then you can act with confidence. And so we sort of carry this thing with us and it's trying to protect us. And what it does is it keeps us from acting. It paralyzes us. Why does it paralyze us? Because if we do something, what if it's a mistake? Best thing to do is nothing. Because inaction is safety. And then we start to feel very paralyzed and stuck in our life. So if you want to get through this, Goddard illustrated this beautifully. You know, first thing is you've got to understand, where did your doubt in yourself, where was that born? And recognize that that doubt becomes actually like a guard dog that's trying to protect you. At the same time, just because a dog grew up in a really dangerous neighborhood and barks at everything that goes by, the dog learned the right lessons for that situation. But as we grow up, as we change neighborhoods, as our life evolves and grows, the rules of the past don't necessarily translate to the present. And so then what we've got to do is be very careful on a moment-to-moment basis of paying attention to that dog and learning how to kind of calm it down, right? It's not beating it up, because eventually what happens is sometimes we even cage the dog and we keep it far, far away. And then we sort of have this explosion and we act very rashly because we're so tired, we're so fed up of being inactive and being unable to move. We get so frustrated with ourselves for feeling stuck that we get this burst of like uncontrolled motivation. And we make really rash decisions that cause us problems. And when they cause problems, by the way, what does the dog say? The dog says, I told you so. You shouldn't have acted at all. I tried to keep you from making this mistake. The solution is don't act, don't act, don't act. I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. And then it tells you again and again and again, you stay stuck, you stay stuck, you stay stuck. It builds up, builds up, builds up, explosion, and then the cycle repeats itself. So notice that doubt. And the key thing here is that if you get an overflow of like emotion that leads to some kind of rash action, the key thing there is you've got to vent that out a little bit at a time. You've got to figure out, okay, like you actually know what you want. You just doubt that it's the right thing. And so the way to move forward is to acknowledge that there's a doubt and to take a tiny step forward. What can your doubt tolerate? What can the guard dog handle? You know, it can handle a little bit. It's like watching very closely, but we could start with something simple. Like, okay, I'm going to eat this slice of pizza. Let's see how I feel about myself. Ask the guard dog. Talk to yourself. Because it's actually looking out for you. It's not your enemy. It's a survival mechanism. And as you start to take these little steps, as you look at the root of where you started to doubt yourself, as you start to look at the way that your mind works, hopefully you can start to take steps forward. You can start to rehabilitate the dog. Rehabilitate that part of your mind that's terrified that you're going to make a mistake. Because at the end of the day, whether you have a slice of pizza today or not, like unless you're like lactose intolerant or, you know, gluten intolerant or something like that, you can have a slice of pizza. Like it's not going to be the end of the world. And that's the way that you start living your life if you're paralyzed by your doubts. Fantastic. All right, what do we have next?
Hi.
Hello, friend. Welcome.
Thank you.
What do you go by?
My name is Jackson.
Hello, Jackson.
Yeah. This is sort of weird. I never really thought I was going to get on the stream, but there you go.
Hello. And so what's the prompt for today again? Remind me.
Yeah. So what I wrote was I finally sort of am starting to feel optimistic about where my life is headed.
Shocking.
I just graduated. Yeah, I just graduated. I got a job, got my own apartment.
Wow, dude. Oh my God, crushing it.
Yeah, it just, all sort of came like really quick. And like with all that, it sort of feels like the foundation is finally built for, everything else to start, I guess, now that I'm 22 and a college grad. But now, like, I'm trying to figure out what the best thing is to focus on next.
Sure.
How to build a routine, especially because I have ADHD and that has sort of always been an issue for me. And then sort of also how to continue growing rather than stagnating.
Okay. So first of all, Jackson, huge congratulations on graduating. Huge
Thank you.
congratulations on getting a job. Huge congratulations on moving into your own place, or you have roommates or what?
No, this is my own place.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Yeah.
What luxury. Even I have
know.
roommates
Dude.
at my age.
Yeah.
They'll never move out.
Yep. Well, 18 years or whatever.
And so what I'm sort of hearing from you is that like you've done a lot of stuff right, but I heard one phrase that I thought was actually quite heavy, which is now I have to start working on everything else.
Yeah.
So what I'm almost hearing from you is that like someone told you what to do. You were like told like, okay, you got to graduate, you got to find a job, you got to move out. And so it was like pretty clear what you're supposed to do with your life up until this point.
Yeah.
But now you're not really sure how to tackle everything else. Because that sounds
Pretty
like
much.
a lot.
Yeah.
What do you think includes, what's in everything else?
I mean, I guess mostly the stuff I haven't done yet. I mean, I feel like it's sort of self-explanatory, but I'm 22 and I've never really like dated. I've never had a solid routine where I like actually sort of parent myself. I've just I don't have I don't consistently work out even though I want to. There's a lot of things like I want to do, but the discipline and the I guess knowledge of how to get there has always gotten in the way. And
Okay.
now that I'm 22 and I have time and I have a job, so I'm self-sufficient, I feel like now I finally can.
Yeah. So that's I'm both excited for you, and I can see how this is actually kind of hard.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, like I have all this time and I can do all these things, but like, wait, how do I actually get started? How do I build a routine? How do I start dating? Oh my goodness. So let me just, can I think for a second?
Yeah, of course.
Is there a particular, okay, so let me just try to understand. So you're basically trying to figure out how to do the rest of being an adult.
Yeah. I know that's pretty broad.
No, I mean, but that's the whole thing, right? That's that. But I mean, that's exactly the issue. Is
Yeah.
that we're like, now that you're an adult, like, what does that entail? It entails a lot of stuff, and there ain't no school for that. Yeah, I mean, it actually seems like pretty overwhelming. So, what do you? Let me ask you: are you feeling okay about yourself in general? Like, are you feeling like you're gonna figure this out over time, or are you kind of like worried about this?
I think in general I feel pretty good about. I think like I think I'll figure it out eventually, but I don't know when eventually is, and
Well said.
I'd rather be proactive about it rather than
Yeah.
like let it happen and figure it out when I figure it out.
Yep.
If there's anything I can do to make it happen, I'd rather work towards that.
Okay. And when you talk about discipline, help me understand what you mean about, like, so it sounds like you want to become more disciplined. What does that mean?
Yeah. I mean, I guess this was a really big issue for me during college, especially with COVID and everything. I got diagnosed with ADHD not even a year ago. It was December. So, I've always struggled with that discipline of doing what needs to be done, even if I didn't want to do it, or even if I did want to do it. If I just doing all of that was really hard, and I felt like actually the routine of waking up for like in high school, that was really easy. You go up, you get up at the same time every day, 5 days a week. You go there for most of the day, and then you come back. It's almost like a job. And then you get to college, and you have so much more free time, that I felt like all of that discipline that I had was really just the schedule that was provided for me. And when I had a class in the morning and then a 6-hour break until my next class that might have been at night, and whatever classes might be online, if I could just skip those, all of that sort of really, I feel like, devolved my discipline for me. Like it really disintegrated in front of me. And
Okay.
now that I have a 9 to 5, I think it's a little bit easier now, because I have to show up at 9 and I have to be there until 5. So that structure is already built for me. But as in terms of what I do after work, like if I'm going to be productive, like I really, like, there's been a lot of, it's been 3 weeks working at this job, and there's stuff around the apartment I need to do. I need to clean. I need to cook. There's, do the dishes. I need to vacuum. I need to research whatever. I need to, there's things to do, and more often than not, I don't do them. Not because I don't want to, but more just because I don't have the discipline to make a schedule for a day or something like that. I've
Okay.
always, yeah.
Okay.
That's sort of where I'm at.
Fantastic, Jackson. So we're gonna, I mean, not.
Yeah, I get you.
Okay. So that's very useful information. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to help you out. And what we're going to do is first break down, I'm going to give you a broad plan of how to become an adult. Okay.
Cool.
And then what we're going to do is actually focus on, I'm going to kind of sketch out what the house is supposed to look like. And then I'm going to teach you how to put 2 or 3 bricks together.
Sounds good.
Okay. So the first thing is broad scale speaking, if you've been working for 3 weeks, I would not take on a whole lot of other stuff quite yet. So adapting to a new circumstance takes your brain somewhere between a month or 2 months. So I'd say
Okay.
for the first 2 months, your goal is actually the most important goal is just that you show up at work every day and you don't screw up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, obviously you got to do dishes and stuff at some point, but like give yourself So recognize that you don't have to become an adult within 3 months of graduating college. Right? Like,
Gotcha.
like by the time you're 25, like you're going to want to sort all this stuff out. So I'd give yourself honestly a couple of years
Okay.
to learn how to like, manage an apartment. Like that takes time. To learn how to like pay taxes. Like that takes time. Like there's a bunch of stuff that's going to be on your plate, which your brain can only be learning so many things at once. And also kind of related to that, I would sort of put in order developing basic discipline and a routine, then exercise, and then tackle dating. Because the thing about dating is that, first of all, if you're not looking for something and you're just active and social, there's a really good chance you'll find something. And also, if all of that other stuff is sorted out, dating can be rough. And so you really want to have the rest of your life kind of like support you in the sense that you can't deal with, things falling apart in other dimensions and deal with the stress of dating. Does that make sense?
That's sort of where I've been, like throughout college. That was like I never really tried because I felt like I always had something I needed to improve on first.
Yeah. Okay. So that you've got to be careful about because you can do that until the day you die. You can go to be 80, right?
That's also why I'm like talking about this.
Yeah,
I don't
so-
want to do that.
Well, but I mean, I think you're well within the, it's like, I think it's reasonable for you to be focusing on education, focusing on like building your life before you kind of dive into dating. So let's talk a little bit about ADHD for a second. Okay.
Sure.
So I'm really glad that you saw a professional. It sounds like you got diagnosed and you're in treatment or whatever, right? Is that okay? Good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to teach you just some general stuff about ADHD. So as you mentioned earlier, you were in a college situation where you had a class and then you had some like self-directed learning and then you've got this evening class. And generally speaking, the more unstructured your life is, the more dangerous it is for your ADHD. Does that make sense? So let's understand that for a second. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is essentially a disorder of attention. So what that means is that your attention will have difficulty sitting on a particular task. So one of the biggest antidotes to ADHD is actually like structure. So in an unregulated environment where I can do 15 different things, someone who is neurotypical may be able to focus on the one thing that they're supposed to do. The problem with ADHD is in an unstructured environment, it's very hard for some people with ADHD to focus on the one thing they're supposed to. And so that results in them like being easily distracted by the 14 other things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
From a neuroscience perspective, the circuits of habit and the circuits of directing attention in transition points are completely different. Does that make sense, or do I need to explain that more? I can explain more.
Yeah.
So anytime we're in a transition point, like if I walk into a room and I sit down and I haven't started a task, I haven't sort of engaged in autopilot, that's a very vulnerable time for me to be distracted, right? So if I sit down at my computer, like I can open up Reddit, I can open up YouTube, I can open up a video game, or I can open up my syllabus. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Once I open my syllabus, I may still be prone to some amount of distraction, but it's easier to read the second line of the syllabus than it is to open up the syllabus and make the first line. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the cool thing about structure for people with ADHD is that structure removes the ambiguity from your situation.
Yes.
The ambiguity in your situation is what really causes problems with ADHD because you could do anything. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the first thing that I'm going to say is it's not about discipline. Okay? So it's really about structure. And you may say to yourself, are those two the same thing? No, they're actually not. So what you need to do is anchor activities in a particular way, which I'll go into more detail about what that means. And that's how you're going to get stuff done. Because the more unstructured time you have, it's like your ADHD is going to run buck wild all through this like unstructured time.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the question is, okay, so then how do I structure my day? That's where what I would really do is anchor what you want to accomplish to things that you are already doing. So for example, if you want to exercise, it's got to be, do you commute to work?
A few days a week, but mostly work from home.
Okay. So this is really important. So when you say a few days a week, are we talking 2 days a week or 3 days a week?
It's whatever I want, technically. So currently 2, but it's only been 3 weeks, so I could
Okay.
move it up if I wanted.
So this is the kind of thing where I would really recommend, like, so if you're going 2 days a week, I would like go to the gym or anchor your exercise to your commute.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you can't, if you can work out at any time, you're going to work out at no time,
Yeah.
right? You're going to figure, you said to yourself that I'll figure this out eventually, but I don't know how long that's going to take. Right? So we have to be careful about nebulous stuff. So what I would really do very concretely is, first of all, focus on structure, formation, and basically the stuff that you are already like kind of bound to do is where you should add the next thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How do you feel about implementing something like that?
I think I've sort of realized that, like, I know the structure is what helps my brain, like,
Good.
work, I guess, more like a neurotypical one. I just always struggled with that first, opening of that syllabus. Like, that was always, I always went to Reddit or YouTube or a
Yep.
game, that would, and then, the next thing I knew, it was 6 p.m. and I hadn't actually done anything.
Yep.
So, I think that I realized that, but the hardest part for me has been like, what time do I pick when it is unstructured? When do I do it? And I guess now that it is sort of structured with the 9 to 5, that's sort of there.
That's the key thing, right? So you can't, so if you try to create structure from nothing and you have ADHD, it's very hard.
Yeah.
You can tell yourself, I'm going to wake up at 8 a.m. every day and I'm going to exercise and then I'm going to clean the kitchen and then I'm going to cook. But without that actual like structural anchor, right? Like you have to show up from 9 to 5. That's a structural anchor which your ADHD brain can't fight against. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the way to do it is like you're almost going to build like, like I don't know if you've seen these cities that have, like slums that kind of spread out, or not even slums, but like suburbs that spread out. You've got the city center, and then we like move out a little bit to the east and move out a little bit to the north, and then move out to like south. And then like we keep on creeping outward from this base. And then eventually we have a sprawling metropolis around us. You kind of familiar with that? I don't know if you play like Civ or things like that.
Yeah,
but
I
all the
guess.
space. So what you need to do basically with your life is like build structure the same way, which is that you can't just create structure out of nothing. Like you can't just like create a palace in the desert. You've got to build it on, if you have ADHD especially, you've got to build it onto other things. So that's where I'd even say, like, if you go into the office 2 days a week, I don't know what your exercise situation is. Like if you've got a home gym or you've got a gym at your apartment complex or you want to get a gym membership or whatever. But what I would really try to do is anchor what you want to accomplish to existing structure.
Gotcha.
Do you think that's going to be helpful? And if you say no, then that's fair.
No,
because
that makes a lot of sense. I think that I never really quite thought of it that way, but I think like even just thinking of it now, that like in my head that I am the most like prone to doing like to working out after I like get home from commuting than I am if I just work from home all 8 hours in the day and like just I get up from my desk, that's
100%, right? So that's where, if you're going to work out at home, that's where I'd say like, then you should go into the office 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. And I know it's weird because it's like, oh my God, I can work from home. But like, if that's what you have to do to start building that structure, and then if you do that often enough and your brain makes a habit, that's the really interesting thing. So with ADHD, the habit circuitry is completely different. So like, it's not like, so Jackson, when you brush your teeth, do you ever get distracted once you start brushing your teeth, or do you finish brushing your teeth once you get started?
I'm distracted.
You get distracted brushing your teeth?
So sometimes, I mean, I
Okay.
guess,
That's not the
I don't
case.
know.
I was but you finish brushing your teeth, right?
yeah, I always finish. Yeah, I'm not like.
But
go to
like, do you
bed with it
stop in the
mouth.
middle and do other things?
No, well, I guess I do other things while I do it. I don't know.
Okay,
Look
but
at
you're
my
still
phone or something.
brushing
Yeah.
your teeth, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, that's
I'm
bad
doing it on
time.
autopilot. I don't know.
So I know you'll be on your phone or whatever, but like
Yeah.
my point is that the teeth brushing has some amount of like automaticity to it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so like once you start brushing, you may get mentally distracted, but the teeth brushing behavior continues.
Gotcha.
And
yeah.
that you may find the same thing even if you exercise, which is like if you get home at 5 p.m., if you get home at 5:30 every day, and like let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you get home at 5:30, or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Because who wants to go into the office on Friday?
Yeah.
But and so you get home at 5, you work out, or you work out on the way home. Would be even better if you can somehow swing that. But if you can't, no sweat. Or what you want to do is if you have like a workout buddy and you go to the gym, so that kind of structure can be really useful. And basically you've got to create that structure for yourself, but you can't create that structure in a vacuum. That's the big thing that a lot of people miss is they're like, I just need to wake up at 8 a.m. every day. And what I need is discipline. No. You want to take what is already structured in your day and then tack on the workout before that or after
Gotcha.
that. Okay. And then I think the rest of the stuff will come. Like once you learn that principle and you start baking in that principle, then you can start adding additional stuff. Like when are you going to do your dishes? So like, what do you think would be a good plan for your dishes?
I mean, currently, I just sort of try to do it before I go to bed. I feel like probably like, whatever accumulates, do it after I finish eating dinner would probably be better. But I'm not really like, even then, like, because I'll do work and then I'll do something else, then I'll remember I need to eat and then I'll make dinner and then I'll, be doing something else while I eat dinner and I'll just get sidetracked until it's like almost time to go to bed and then I don't really want to do the dishes.
Yeah, so your plan is probably not going to be very successful because I'm not hearing that you're anchoring doing dishes to some kind of
Yeah.
structure.
Exactly.
So what's some kind of structure that you could anchor the dishes to?
I suppose, I mean, could always just do them in the morning before work.
Right? So that's something where like, do you wake up
routine.
with enough time to do the dishes before you go to work?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that makes sense. So if you like clock in at 9 a.m., then what I would do is like spend like 20 or 30 minutes before that, like straightening things up. Do you think that's something you could do?
Yeah.
Chat is suggesting that you do dishes while you brush your teeth.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
But yeah, I know it sounds almost kind of like too simple, Jackson, but it's weird because you really do have to understand how your brain with ADHD works. And you basically have to recruit, you can't rely on like attentional fluctuation, like that your mind in any of these transition periods will just do the right thing because you'll just get distracted. So what you've got to do is really tack on to that existing structure.
Cool.
Cool.
Am I going to learn about this in the ADHD part of the Dr.
You're
King's
going to
guide?
learn a ton. I don't know that this is something that we teach specifically in that, which is good because you learned this from me now.
Extra. Nice.
So the other stuff, you'll learn a lot about like organization. Hopefully you'll learn a lot of good stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope so, but
I pre-ordered it, so.
cool. Well, you're going to get it for
Where's
free
your
now.
book?
So,
Yeah.
thanks for pre-ordering anyway. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, man. Anything else?
I don't think so. I think that's the biggest struggle I've had recently, so I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
All right, so just quick summary. So this is something to understand about ADHD. If you have a neurotypical brain, you can sort of direct your attention during transitions. So if I like take a shower, for example, like when I'm done taking a shower and I get dressed, like I can tell my mind, okay, it's time to start working. I sit down at my computer, I open up my work. This happens to all of us, but it's really easy to get distracted on our computer, right? So like we can open up Reddit or open up social media or Twitter or whatever. Like it's so easy to get distracted. We especially get distracted during transition points. So during transition points is where there's a circuit in your brain that's like, okay, I could start working or I could get a really quick hit of dopamine. Let me just get a super quick, just a taste of that Twitter. Let me just get a taste of it and just, right? And so we kind of like, and if you've got ADHD, that struggle is way harder to deal with. So how do we tackle this kind of situation? If you want to build discipline in your life, it's not so much about discipline, especially if you've got ADHD, because you're not going to be able to force your mind into something. Does that make sense? Because when we think about discipline, we're talking about using willpower consistently over time to direct our mind in a particular way. Do we want to eventually build that? Absolutely. The key thing about someone who has ADHD is that their habit circuitry is still, generally speaking, relatively intact. So what we actually want to do, if you want to do something new and you've got ADHD, we want to build off of some kind of existing structure. So for example, working out when we're driving home, because once we get home, it's like all bets are off, right? I'm going to randomly do this for a while. I'm going to randomly do this for a while. I'm going to randomly do this for a while, and I won't be able to direct my mind. But if I get in my car when I'm leaving work and I put in my GPS, the address to the gym, and I go straight to the gym, I have my bag packed, I work out, or even if I forgot my bag because I've got ADHD, I'm still going to work out, right? Or I'm going to keep a spare set in the car, or all kinds of other stuff. I'm going to work out on my way home. And then what's magical is if you do that long enough, then you'll start to entrain a habit, okay? So that's a key tip for people with ADHD, is that you don't want to sort of rely on forcing your mind to do the right thing during a transition. You actually want to build off of existing structure to accomplish what you set your mind, or what you want to. All right, let's see what's next. Hello.
Hello.
What do you go by, friend?
You can just call me Rio.
Rio?
Yeah.
Welcome, Rio. How's life?
Could be better.
Okay.
The prompt that I wrote was pretty small, so I'm actually really surprised that I was chosen to come on here.
Okay.
Was moderately hopeless that I'll find a way to live happier, as every day is a maximum effort to do even minor tasks, let alone live as a functional adult.
Okay. So let me just make sure I understood. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes. I'm just trying to figure out a way that's not going to take like a million years. For the most part, like, well, one, probably a lot older than most of the people that ever get interviewed on here. I'm 39, so
Okay.
a lot of ingrained, probably bad habits.
Okay.
Also have adult diagnosed ADHD.
Okay.
So, for the most part, a lot of my life is usually just kind of like a struggle to do everything. So, the fact that I could do anything is mostly just because I pretty much like berate myself or pressure myself into doing something. But at the end of the day, it's just like, okay, I got that thing done, but I don't really feel like good or accomplished that I did it. It's just the necessary, like, I don't know, not to be too over dramatic, but it's like the necessary suffering that I need to go through to be an adult. And I don't know, that's kind of just the thing, is it's not very fulfilling.
Sure. So if I'm understanding you correctly, like, you can't really take your pride in accomplishments because they're just like the most basic kind of stuff.
More or less, yeah.
Right. So you have to spend so much. So let me see if I understand this, Rio. And I'm very glad that you submitted a prompt, and I'm really happy to talk to you today. I think you absolutely deserve to be here. And but let me just make sure I understand. So, like, here's your situation. So, generally speaking, what we take pride in are things that are like hard to accomplish, right? So, like, I work really, really hard, and then like I accomplish something that's like extraordinary, which is why it takes so much work. Like, I painted a 30-foot mural. I should be able to take pride in that, right? Because I worked really hard and I have this like objectively superior thing to show for my effort. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
The challenge that
So-
I'm hearing with you is that you have to put forth so much effort, but what you get at the end is so basic that it's like you don't even feel like you accomplished anything.
Yeah, for the most part. Like I do have like a penchant for like art and things, but that's kind of what it boils down to is that like I put all this effort to try and put it in there or to create it, and then when I step back when I'm finished and look at it, really all I can see are all like either the mistakes or the things that I guess I lament over wishing I could be more motivated to have fixed, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, that could have been, you know, if I erased that and redid that whole thing, it would look a lot better. But I didn't because that's way too much effort.
Okay. So despite like do you play video games, Rio?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
a ton.
So like you empty your mana bar and you've done a tiny amount of damage or healing for all like and now you're
Yeah,
that-
it'd basically be like, yo, I'm the priest, so I'm gonna tank or I'm gonna do DPS. It's
yeah,
like,
a beautiful analogy, right? So you're just operating in an inefficient mode.
pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, so that's super challenging. Let me ask you, I mean, how long have you been dissatisfied with yourself?
I mean, God, it kind of feels like forever. Probably since I was like a teen. So
And do you have
like 13 or so.
do you have a sense of what you're dissatisfied about yourself?
A lot of the time from like because I do a lot of introspection, I'm very introverted, so um a lot of the time I think the majority of my frustration is just being like why can't I do that? You know, why can't I just, when you think about like being back in school and it's just like just study and blah blah blah. You know, like the example that you gave when you open the stream and everything, and it's just like the constant thing is like, why didn't you just study? And it's just like, okay, how? And then you get berated. It's just like, don't talk back to me, and that's kind of just more or less, I guess, how my life goes. Except like I don't get to yell at anybody or put like that animosity onto somebody else because it's me that's kind of just echoing that in my head.
Yeah,
I don't
well
know how
said.
to like turn it off because it just feels reflexive.
Yep, and it is at this point. So Rio, I believe that things can get better for you, and I think it's actually going to be like a long and hard road. So by long and hard road, I mean I think with a couple of years, like maybe 2 or 3 years, you can be in a substantially better place. But I think that it takes time to undo some of this wiring. I just want to start with that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally down for it. I've gone through lots of therapy and stuff, like years of like seeing different psychiatrists and therapists. Only one psychologist, which was the one that actually did the like brain scan for the ADHD diagnosis and stuff. But like, unfortunately, a lot of the therapists that I go to and talk to, whenever I like bring up a thing where it's just like, hey, I read this thing, or I've heard this, or I've seen this one thing, which is more or less quoting from some of your videos and such, and I'll present that idea to them, and they just kind of go, what is that? I have no idea what that is. So it's just like, well, crap. All right, well, that's therapist number 4 that has no idea what the hell they're like, who the hell I am or how to talk to me. So it's just like I don't know what to do at
Yeah,
this point.
so we're
That's
gonna
why it's
start.
kinda
So
hopeless.
I can honestly, bro, I can completely understand why someone in your situation would feel that way. So what I'd love to do is start kind of like pretty broad. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I'm going to put you on the spot. There's no way you know the answer to these questions. Okay, so just toss out a number. We'll ask chat. Let's say, actually, we'll put chat on the spot. So researchers have done some really interesting studies, and if you take a child or like teenager with a mood disorder like major depressive disorder or bipolar disorder, Can you guess what percentage of those kids will grow up to have ADHD? So if I take 100 kids that have major depressive disorder, how many of them will grow up and be later diagnosed with adult ADHD?
It's too broad a spectrum to come up with a number because it's all dependent on like the individual themselves, like all the stuff about the individual, race, culture, the environment they grow up in.
You're correct. So it's a very nuanced and individual kind of thing. But if you sort of average all that crap together, it turns out that somewhere between 2 and 10% of kids who have major depressive disorder grow up to have ADHD. Okay? You're not wrong, though. Your answer isn't incorrect. So now I'm going to flip things around. What percentage of kids who have ADHD grow up to have a mood disorder?
Just speaking from experience, I would assume like anywhere near 100%.
Well said. So the number is staggeringly high. It's like 70 or 80%. So this is really important to understand. Growing up with ADHD makes you prone to feel terrible about yourself. It's a causative effect. So people have looked at people who have both ADHD and depression, and sometimes people have both of these kind of illnesses like independently, and you kind of like, you're like a true kind of like hybrid. But the interesting thing is that there is a causal relationship between growing up with ADHD, and this is very true for people who have adult diagnosed ADHD. So this is what happens with a kid who's got adult diagnosed ADHD. When you're a kid and you're 13 years old, you know you're smart, right? You're not stupid, but you look at other kids and things that are easy for them are hard for you. And no one around you understands that. So what do they assume? They assume that you're an idiot. They assume that you're like busted in some way. Or lazy is a very, very good one, right? Why don't you just ... Just study more. Just focus on this. When literally your brain does not know how, like it can't do that, right? It's like telling someone, it's like if we, if I couldn't see anyone's legs and most people were able to walk, but then there's like one person with no legs that can't walk, and I'm like, why aren't you walking? Right? Because we have no awareness of the differences in people's brains when they have ADHD. The problem is that the child with ADHD grows up with all of that judgment. And so what they start to do is berate themselves. And why do they berate themselves? It's because people berated them. They start to feel like idiots because they can tell this should be easy for me. And this is what's so devastating. As I look at all these other kids, and I know I'm just as smart as that kid. I know I'm just as smart as that kid. I even know I'm way smarter than this dumbass of a kid over here. Right? And yet...
That's what my family told me too a lot of the time when I was growing up, is it's like, oh, you're very smart, you're very gifted and blah, blah, blah. But instead it's just like, all right, well, now I got a way higher bar to jump over than everybody else.
Yeah. Right? So it's like, yeah, you're way smarter than everyone else, but by the way, it's hard for you to read because you're blind. Right? It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with something about the way that your brain is structured. There are some neuroscience changes in your brain that make it challenging for you to do particular things. The problem is that when you grow up with undiagnosed ADHD, what does it look like? It looks like depression, because that's what it manifests into. And then what we oftentimes find is situations like yours. Well, some people, adult ADHD is because for a long time we were just missing these diagnoses. Because then you come in, and since you are depressed because of living a life of undiagnosed ADHD, then what people diagnose you with is depression. And then the ADHD still gets missed. And now you've been labeled in a particular way.
That's exactly what's been going on with me for a lot until I was diagnosed. My therapist actually was like, well, we're trying all these things and nothing seems to be sticking. Can we do a brain scan so we could see if maybe we're not missing something else?
It's a terrible situation that you've been put through, Rio, and unfortunately it is entirely too common. And this is because depression comes with problems like motivation issues, energy issues, concentration issues. Those are all parts of depression as well. And so even the ADHD can masquerade as a depression, even from a clinician. And this happens even more in patients who are smart. Because what smart patients with ADHD end up doing is they end up compensating for their ADHD in other ways. And that actually hides the ADHD.
Yeah, it kind of ends up making you like the go-to guy to find the quickest fix for something. 'Cause
Right?
It's just like, I don't have the energy to sit here and dawdle, so I'm going to find the quickest way to do
Yeah.
whatever.
So the first thing that you've got to understand is that, like, you being late is like, we all queued up and we've been in this game for 45 minutes, but your keyboard and mouse have been unplugged for the first 40 minutes. That's why you are where you are. It has nothing to do with you being undisciplined. It has nothing to do with you being lazy. It has nothing to do with you being stupid. You've just been literally playing, you've been playing on ping your whole life, and like really, really bad ping. Right? And then the amazing thing is, like, if you actually look at people who play on ping, like, their predictive, if you ever want to land a spell, you've got to predict. You've got to do some 5-head, 6-head calculation to even play this game. And so what I want you to start, yeah.
Oh, that's what I do I play fighting games a lot, so that's kind of where I'm at, because I also play on Wi-Fi, so a lot of it is all, like, I can't do reaction stuff because I'm too, like, the ping just doesn't help me, so I just have to make a lot of reads and guesses.
Exactly. Bro, that's the way you've been living your entire life. Like, I want you to really understand that. So the first thing that's got to change is, like, you've got to understand that the negative thoughts that you have about yourself, you can't just make them go away with this logical understanding. But on some part of you, I hope we can at least, put in a kernel or a seed of, like, understanding that you are not 39 years old and still struggling to do basic stuff because you're fundamentally broken in some way. You are 39 years old and struggling to do basic stuff because you've been playing life with a handicap. So this, like, you've got to understand this about yourself, that there's nothing wrong with you. Now, we'll get to more practical stuff, but does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a thing that I feel like I more or less come to terms with. It's like the main frustration is just like, I understand that, but it's just like, I don't have anything to help me with it. You know what I mean? It's just like, all right, cool, you're playing on dial-up, but there's cable out there, but
You're
can't
still losing the game.
for no reason.
Yeah,
or for seemingly no reason.
I'm with you. So that understanding doesn't fix the problem, right? Like, it'll become important down the road. It is a component of fixing the problem. But I see what you're saying in the sense that it doesn't actually fix the problem. Like, it doesn't make your day-to-day tasks easier. So there are a couple of other things that I want to kind of share with you. One is when you do put forth maximal effort for some kind of minimal gain, can you give me an example of what kind of thing you're talking about?
It's really hard for me to kind of like quantify that currently, because I don't know, like the analogy I would come up with is just like, life is constantly me kind of drag myself across sandpaper, so like I'm kind of just like rubbed raw, so kind of everything feels, maximum effort or it doesn't happen. There's lots of times where I just like sit there and stare at YouTube doing for like 8 hours, and the entire time I'm just going, it's like, man, I could be doing like anything, like playing a video game, try to jog in, anything.
Are you
I'm just gonna sit here at YouTube.
Okay. So are you in a part of the world where you can spend some time outside?
Yeah.
Do you spend time outside?
Not really. I also have kind of aversion to like physical effort because for about 20 years I worked in labor and warehousing. So like doing all the like, because a lot of people have told me that too. It's just like, oh, you should just exercise or go outside for a walk and blah blah blah. But a lot of that to me is just like, well, it doesn't make me feel good after I do it. It's just like I come home hoping that what people tell me happens, but it doesn't really. I don't really feel any better, and just a lot of effort
Okay.
kind of gone out the window, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. So there's another thing that you've got to understand, Rio. It's interesting. It's bizarre. I've actually been struggling a little bit with this myself. So, bro, I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but I think it's doable. So there's one thing that you've got to understand, which is that anytime you put forth effort, when are you expecting a return on that effort?
I mean, it's kind of like this weird dual nature thing where the one hand it's based off of like comparison to others who have done said activity or whatever, and not just like I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, well the best guy in the world does it this fast. It's just like in general for the average person, I'll
Yep.
do research on
Yeah,
line
yeah.
and stuff. But then the other half of it is like I kind of go into most things assuming that like it's gonna like fall flat.
Okay. So what you've got there are a couple of different problems. One is you've got a nocebo effect going on. Have you ever heard that term before?
I've only heard it once.
So
Not coming this time.
there's this thing called the placebo effect. Have you heard of the placebo effect?
Yes.
And what's your understanding of the placebo effect?
They give you more like I only know it in medicine, but it's
Sure.
like, you know, they give you a sugar pill and they call it like, you know, this drug will help you fix your headaches. And then when they give it to a broad range of people, hopefully there are some that are going to like just, you know, through the power of the mind, just like not have a headache.
Absolutely.
You know.
So this is a scientifically validated effect where if someone believes something is going to work, it actually drastically increases the chances of it working. So the interesting thing is that there's something that called the nocebo effect, which is actually the opposite of the placebo effect, which is that if you believe that something isn't going to help you, its ability to help you actually objectively decreases. So now you're stuck in an interesting situation where you've got two options, right? You can either expect a gain that the average person would get, and then you're kind of like setting yourself up for disappointment, right? Because comparing yourself to the average person has not worked out well. And the only way that you can counter that is to try to like let go of all expectation and sort of expect things to fall flat.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
So there are a couple of subtleties there that we've got to tunnel down into. Expecting nothing to happen is not actually the same as letting go of all expectations.
Mm.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I mean, yeah, because like, I guess there's like, I guess for like, I would assume our standard kind of like high anxiety like situations like going to a job interview and stuff like that. Instead of being like, oh, I'm gonna suck at it or I'm gonna hit it, I'm just going like, I don't know, just do what you think can as best you can and see if they call you back. That's it.
Yeah, perfect.
It's just like I don't know how to. I guess like I don't know when that decides to turn off. I guess I don't know how to put it.
Yeah,
Like when I do art and stuff, I don't know why that doesn't stick in my head, and
Yeah.
instead the negative stuff sticks.
very, very, very good observation. So there are a couple of things here that I'm going to kind of like share with you. Okay, the first is you need to go for a walk every day. But the reason that you're going for a walk today is so that the walk that you do tomorrow is easier. Your problem, Rio, is not only that you have ADHD and all this stuff of growing up with undiagnosed ADHD and things like that. We don't know if all that stuff is precisely correct, by the way, because we haven't really done that kind of evaluation on you. But it's a very common pattern. The other problem is that you're deconditioned. You're rusty. Now, the problem when you're rusty is that, like, you basically get lower yield for the effort that you put in while you're rusty. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're like operating at kind of like a deficit type of thing.
Absolutely. And so the problem is that when you combine this with nocebo stuff or comparing to the average, what's going to happen, and this is in the guide, by the way, what's going to happen is that when your brain is expecting a certain result and it doesn't see that result, what does that do to your motivation?
I mean, it kind of destroys it because it's pretty devastating. Where it's just like, if I do the whole positive thinking, it's like, yeah, you can do this, and it's like, all right, and then objectively, it's just like, nope, I failed. Then it's just like, well, damn,
Yeah.
I even did the whole thing.
Yep.
I put myself out there, and like,
And then
and
beautifully said,
it's a lot more.
right? Destroys it. And then what it does is it teaches your brain to say, next time, don't do it. Because we tried this before and it doesn't work and it's just a waste of energy. And you've been through that cycle so many different times that now your brain, and because you asked this question, I don't know why I can't let go of expectations. It's because your brain has been trained through that cycle over and over and over again. So your brain has been conditioned in a particular way, and I think you've become sort of just energetically deconditioned. So this is going to be kind of weird, but there's like one strategy for you, which I think will help you. And that is basically do the hard thing today with the hope that tomorrow is better. So the goal of walking today is so that walking tomorrow is a little bit less like sandpaper. The goal of, let's say exercising today or brushing your teeth or flossing or whatever kind of thing that you do today is not for you today. And what you need to start doing is investing in your life for tomorrow. What do you think about that?
I guess it's hard for me to understand because it feels like that's kind of just what I'm doing in a sense. Because
Yep.
for the most part, I probably also have like major depression or at least the symptoms of it because it's really hard to do lots of anything, like even brushing your teeth. Like the previous interview that was on, where it's just like, do you get distracted when you're brushing your teeth? I was like, hell yeah, I do. Where I was just like, because it takes effort for me to just brush my teeth. I would rather just like sit there and do nothing.
Yeah. So this is where an
because I
evidence.
have to.
So there's science behind this. So I know it feels. So this is the interesting thing, Rio. The actions that you do on a day-to-day basis may actually be exactly the same. The difference is what's in your mind when you do the actions. So I'm not telling you to do more. What I'm telling you is change your mindset. Because that will actually like change the way that your brain, because we've already determined, right? So if I asked you like if I do something for a particular goal and then I don't meet that goal, how does that change my motivation? By your words, it destroys it. But if I do an action without an expectation and I don't get it, the way that affects my motivation and energy level actually changes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So this is the bizarre thing. The war that you have to fight is not outside. It's not even an action. It's all up here. Because you'll see this in the guide, but there's this video on something called the action success calculation, which is that our brain is more likely to engage in behaviors that we think are going to be successful, right? So when you're predicting something in a fighting game, why are you doing a jump kick in that moment? Because the jump kick will land. The tricky thing about the action success calculation is if our motivation correlates to the likelihood of success, what that actually means is that our self-esteem is critical for our motivation. Because if we don't think we can succeed, it'll be impossible to motivate ourselves. People don't realize that energy and motivation have a lot to do with what you do up here. And so I know the actions on a day-to-day basis, because it sounds like you actually do what you need to do. Like you get it done.
Yeah, it's just,
So
like,
I'm not...
the easiest thing is like, I'm good at suffering, I guess, is
Yep,
like
but-
the saying.
Yeah, so where does suffering exist?
What do you mean?
Where do you suffer?
'Cause it always feels like I'm just doing stuff that I didn't want to, I guess. So I got to force myself to do it.
Yeah.
You know.
So like all that stuff is in your mind.
Mm.
Right? Forcing yourself is not doing the action. Like, so the action is the same. Forcing yourself to do the dishes and doing the dishes because you've got a hot date tonight and you want your apartment to be clean so that you can get laid. The action is actually exactly the same. But
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I just found that funny. I'm actually married.
okay, whatever.
Sorry.
So like my point is that the action is the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just what's in your mind will shape what comes next. And so what I really want you to start with is this idea that whatever you're going to do today, it's going to be rough, but you're going to be like cleaning off the rust. You're going to be setting yourself up for a better tomorrow. And then when tomorrow rolls around, you've got to be super, super careful because you may automatically start to say, okay, where's the good tomorrow? I worked yesterday for the good tomorrow. Incorrect. What you're going to do today is for a better tomorrow. Same damn thought in your head every single day. Everything that I'm putting in today is for a better tomorrow.
I just wonder how you like, I guess, escape the like backlash if stuff doesn't happen. I guess I don't know.
Yep. So you don't escape the backlash. You let it wash through you, and you're still going to do what you're going to do today for tomorrow. Because there are all kinds of other problems with that backlash and the expectation. So this is where, like, I know it's kind of weird, but when I do something for tomorrow, I want to close that loop by getting the benefit, right? Like when I make a sacrifice today, I want to get the gain tomorrow. You're not worried about the gain. I'm not thinking about the gain at all. All I'm thinking about is why I'm taking this action today. And if tomorrow is too soon, you can say, I'm doing this for my future. And you can make it more nebulous.
So can I like ask then? Because I recently like started exercising and stuff like that, like bought a whole weight set and all that stuff. And I try and do that like every other day. And the idea behind it is like I don't need to get buff, I don't even need to get thin or anything like that. Like I could care less. The only thing I do it for is hopefully to be healthier and not die sooner. Is that like the mindset you're talking about, or is that still more defeatist?
How long
I
have you
guess?
been exercising?
I think it's going on for like a month.
Okay. And how is your motivation to exercise?
Pretty much just more or less the same. Where it's just I either weigh the negative options of not doing it, and more or less therefore like force myself to do it. It's like, well, if you don't do this, all these things that your primary care physician has told you that could happen may happen. So
Yeah. So
I'm in the basement and start working out.
I think you're in the right direction. But even in that moment, what you're actually doing is like whipping yourself to work out. It's the avoidance of a negative as opposed to building something positive. But I think that you've worked out for a month, which is fantastic. Right? There's no way that that's not having a physiologic effect. Like, unless you're a biologically unique human. You know, like that's going to be like if you're exercising and you're lifting weights, that's going to increase your testosterone. It's going to balance your blood pressure and your heart rate. And those kinds of things will affect your concentration, will affect your mood, all kinds of stuff. They'll even affect the kinds of foods that you crave. And as they alter the foods that you crave and you start eating different stuff, that will even start to affect some of your attentional symptoms. So I think that's fantastic. I'd modify it a little bit, but I think it's one step in the right direction. Right? Because you're still like whipping yourself. You're not doing it for something, you're doing it to avoid something.
Yeah, I mean,
But it's a step in the right direction.
yeah, like it's hard for me to wrap my head around the whole like do it for yourself because I don't really have self-esteem. So
Yep.
it's hard to
and that's
like,
that's why
manufacture something.
what did we start with, Rio?
The nocebo effect.
Even before that, I was kind of thinking, yeah, I mean, this conversation, but that's where like that whole ADHD and depression stuff is very important because that lack of self-worth is at the bottom of all of this stuff because you've lived a life where you were taught that you don't have self-worth. Right? Because the ways, like, where does self-worth come from? It actually comes from external assessments of worth. So when people say, good job, that kid grows up to be confident. But what happened is you were putting forth effort time and time and time again. You were struggling to try to get your mind to pay attention, and it wasn't able to pay attention, so you concluded that you're fundamentally busted. And once you conclude that you're fundamentally busted, the self-esteem goes with it.
Yeah, that or I managed to find like a loophole that nobody else did. So it's just like, hey, look, this is totally like worth 100, even though if you look here and here, that's totally me cheating or something.
That's what smart kids with ADHD do. They find compensatory mechanisms. The problem is even if you may have passed the class, your self-worth doesn't catch up. Does that make sense? The damage to your self-worth is done because you had to do all these mental gymnastics and BS or trick your way to getting what other kids could just do normally. And then you still feel abnormal at the end of that. So there's like deep work that you've got to do there. I think hopefully with a therapist I think is probably appropriate given the ADHD and the depression and stuff like that. But I want you to really try this mindset shift of, I'm just going to do this to make my life better tomorrow. And every day it's about tomorrow. And every day it's about tomorrow. And then the tricky thing is that before you realize it, or you're not going to realize it. One day you're going to wake up and your life is like actually going to be in a pretty good place. And you're not going to even have noticed when that happened. Because building a life that's good is like looking at yourself in the mirror every day. You look exactly the same. But look at a picture of yourself from 5 years ago, and it's like, wow, that person looks completely different.
Yeah, they look happy.
Yep. Lol.
I guess like one other question I would like to ask you then is like, I understand like what you're saying about like, change of mindset and stuff. It always rings in my head that it's just like, well, okay, so I gotta like lie to myself until I believe it but I don't know that, I don't know, it sounds super negative, so I don't know, or counterproductive, so I don't really.
It's a great question. You don't lie to yourself. You do some amount of introspection and you try to find a way to believe it. Because what I'm telling you, I think, is like a reasonable proposition, right? It's not like I'm telling you to believe in the flying spaghetti monster and that the flying spaghetti monster will bestow upon you liquid courage. Like it's a reasonable proposition that if you take a walk today, it'll be easier to walk tomorrow. So I do think that a mindset shift is not about lying. It's about some amount of introspection. And then the other thing that you need to do is awareness. So gather data. So like, how many days do I need to walk before it gets, okay, I walked today in order for it to be easier tomorrow. Is it easier or harder tomorrow? It's actually harder today. Interesting. Why is that? It should be easier. Let me understand what's changed. I'm still going to walk today in order for a better tomorrow. And I'm going to walk today as many days as I need to for it to be easier tomorrow. So I would be a little bit more reflective about your actions. Because the other thing is that you should genuinely be able to, and this is where we're falling into a similar trap, but like, if you've been exercising like for a month, bro, like that's legit. Right? Like there are a lot of people in our community who wished, myself included, that we could exercise for a month.
I guess that's kind of where it's like, I'm good at suffering. I guess I have a lot of like physical issues that I've had to deal with working in labor all the time. So like I kind of already have like a pocket in my head to go to when I gotta suffer through something. So
Yeah.
like something
So,
physically to push against is way easier.
yeah. So that's where I would be careful about where your mind automatically goes, and after you have an experience, like just reflect on it. Right. So at the end of the day, like what's something that you can be proud of today? What did you do today to make tomorrow easier? Even if it doesn't make it easier, this is important to understand. You at least did it for yourself. Right? You're setting yourself up. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. But it's kind of like I'm going to plant a seed and I'm going to water it in the hopes that something will grow. Even if nothing grows, it doesn't mean that planting the seed and watering it was a mistake. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you've got to start living in a way that values your life and recognize that you can't necessarily create a better tomorrow. All you can do is set up the odds in your favor. And that's what you should take pride in, is that I did the best that I could to create a good life for myself. You know, I built this piece of artwork and then a meteor hit the earth and it was destroyed. Like, you can't do anything about that. But you can still take pride in the artwork that you created. And that's what you need to start taking pride in, is don't do an action for the sake of like things actually being, if they're not easier tomorrow, like whatever. At least you did something for yourself to try to make your life better tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.
Rio, I feel for you, man, because it does not sound like your life has been an easy one. And it sounds like you were dealt a lot of crappy cards in life. And like,
Yeah.
at the same time, I think that what I'm actually hearing from you is that you're actually quite strong and resilient. And I don't know if you see yourself that way, but the person that I'm talking to, the more I talk to you, the more I think that I have faith that you can sort this out, man.
Well, that's nice to hear.
I mean, you're exercising every day for a month. You know, you had a stable job that cost you a lot, right? But for 20 years, you're married, so you're able to maintain somewhat of a healthy relationship, we're assuming. And so I think that there's actually a lot of stuff there that you really like is the makings of a good life.
Yeah, that's like like I said, there's like a million years worth of explanations of things that kind of rattle around in my head because,
Sure.
like you just said, where it's just like it seems like this should equal like a good happy life, and it's just like frustrating that it's just like, but why don't I feel that? It's weird
Yeah.
and also confusing.
Newsflash. The reason you don't feel that is because of your mind. Right? So just like we talked about in terms of doing the dishes, that can be a chore or it can be an exciting thing, even though the actions are the same. You have a lot of the components of a good life. Realizing it comes from working in your mind. So good luck to you, bro.
Thank you. And thanks for all of this. This was very enlightening.
All right. Well, hopefully we can help in some small way. And definitely check out the guide. I mean, hopefully there'll be stuff in there that'll be illuminating for you.
Yeah, I think I shall. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Rio. Take care.
You too.
So, Tech Teller, we probably have time for one more. Yeah, so actually, let me just take a minute to. So sometimes we do all the right things. Let me think about this. So sometimes we do all the right things, and yet we don't get what we expected. And that can be like super challenging. Anyway, let's. And I think it's tricky, but a lot of it really does come down to the mind and sort of fixing your mindset. But let's jump to our next caller, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about this at the end. Go ahead, friend.
Hi, Dr. K. I'm Flames, or Iva, if you like. I was a full-time Twitch streamer some years ago, doing like Quake speedrunning content and Reflex Arena
Hype.
before that. I discovered, or maybe rediscovered, a passion for music and went back to university as a mature student. I'm actually graduating on Monday. And I don't really know what else to say. I'm diagnosed as autistic and ADHD. And the prompt, right? And so I don't really feel like my life has begun. I feel like I'm trying to get to the place where I start living, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been going on for a really long time, it seems, and I'm pretty exhausted with it at this point. But what I'm doing right now is a bit of a stroke of luck. You know, Dogecoin went to the moon recently. I mined that like 8 years ago. So I've managed to get a bit of money together, and I, for the first time, feel like I kind of have a future if I play my cards right. So now I'm, graduation, student loans have run out. I'm kind of trying to apply for jobs and get through this next year, and then I'm trying to move abroad, and I'm trying to go off grid and do all that self-sufficiency type living. That's been a goal for a while. I want to be self-reliant. For me, I have a big problem with the system. For me, and I feel like that ties in. Like until I get out of the system as I view it and back to reality or the real world, I feel like I haven't really begun to live, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And okay. So can I just digest for a second, Flamed?
Yep.
What do you mean by like out of the system?
Out of the system. So none of it feels real to me. Like I always was one of these people who really didn't enjoy school. I didn't like having to go back to university. I did it because I needed the student loans to buy myself like another 3 years, really. I don't like the 9 to 5. I find I worked some hospitality over the summer and stuff, and I find it very soul crushing. Just really have a hard time with all that. I've always been trying to break out of it. I feel like I'm in a cage or something.
And what would you like to do?
So it's tricky. I love music. I love to play my drums. I really want to be self-reliant. I want to try to grow and produce as much of my own food as possible. I want to implement a solar installation, a rainwater catch, this kind of thing. I'm quite interested in permaculture and how we can sort of live symbiotically with the natural environment. To me, that seems like a real life. Whereas for me, as long as I'm dependent on money and dependent on the systemic structures, I feel like I'm very vulnerable. That all feels very unstable, and it can, as we've seen, it can go very wrong and has a really negative effect on people's lives. I don't like being kind of vulnerable to all of that.
And do you have a sense of how you could embark on living the life that you want?
Well, it seemed impossible for a long time, but right now I've just begun trying to sell all of my possessions and like a downsizing, and also to to kind of liquefy those assets, I guess. And I'm going to get onto a waiting list to have a tiny house built. And I've also looked into, the solar installation and everything I need. And I've just recently got back from Portugal, where I was looking at land and things.
Damn, dude, that sounds wild.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, it's also exhausting, but in a way, like for the first time ever really recently, I felt optimistic about the future. It's also very heavy, but there is that positive side to it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel somewhat inspired talking to you.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, so are you familiar with this concept that we sometimes talk about, Flame, called dharma or dharma?
Yeah.
What's your understanding of that concept?
So it's your purpose as created by your experience.
That's a great way to put it. And Flame, like, my first kind of reaction is to encourage you, but cautiously. How do you feel about that?
It makes sense. Yeah, I mean it's pretty high risk, but at the same time, I think you've recognized that this is the only way that I'm ever really going to find fulfillment.
Well, so that's the thing to keep in mind, right? Is like you haven't done it yet. So like, what if you do all this stuff and you don't find fulfillment?
Yeah, that would be pretty rough. That's hit me recently. Actually, I had a bit of a panic attack, maybe about wondering, questioning it, like, is this actually what I want, or am I trying to fulfill some kind of emotional void or something?
Yeah.
I got very concerned about that at one point.
Yeah, so that's why. So you know, the question is: are you moving towards something, or are you running away from something? And I think this kind of drastic overhaul in your life is like better if you're moving towards something as opposed to away from something. So sometimes, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It's hard for me to tell. It feels like both, because
Yeah.
I'm escaping what I view as a very bad situation, but I'm also moving towards what I view as a better situation.
Yeah, so that's where you know, I think it's tricky, right? Because in life, sometimes like our soul speaks to us. Like we don't use this word calling very much anymore. We'll talk about jobs, we'll talk about careers, but this word calling is like kind of weird. So I sort of think about calling as in the same ballpark as dharma, and it's not quite as capitalistic and whatnot, right? So it's like it's about spiritual fulfillment and doing something that you were kind of meant to do. And I think it's fine to move towards your calling. I would just say do it cautiously, because I've worked with a lot of people who think that this particular thing is going to revolutionize their life. But the problem is that they'll like do that thing and it doesn't work out quite the way they wanted to, because even some things that you think may be awesome come with some of the same downsides as like the crap you're doing now. I don't think so in this case, because it doesn't sound like, you know, growing your own food and permaculture and stuff is a 9 to 5. You may actually discover that it's a 7 to 10 p.m. Like it's way more work, right? But that could be good or it could be bad. So I would kind of encourage you to move towards this, but I would sort of say like, you know, I would do it a little bit cautiously if you can.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And, you know, in my own mind, from perhaps what I was thinking some years ago to now, I've really had to scale it back and think, look, I'm not aiming to be 100% self-reliant here, self-sufficient. That's like an impossibility for me to achieve. It's going to stretch me too thin. It's going to be too much. I just need to, you know, and it's going to be a steep learning curve coming from never having done this type of thing. So it's going to be like step by step. It's going to be implementing piece by piece and learning a little bit at a time rather than getting way in over my head.
Yeah, so that's also where I would really think a little bit about your degree and your passion for music, and encourage you to think a little bit about like, not necessarily a backup plan, but some kind of hybrid thing. Like, is there some kind of freelance music stuff you could kind of sprinkle in there, or things like that where, you know, I don't, the one thing that would terrify me, Flamed, is that if you went on this grand journey and then sort of had to come back and then go back into the 9 to 5. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, I mean, it sounds like, you know, this is something that you should explore, and that like, I would encourage you to journal along the way and, you know, keep track of what you learned. And like, I think it sounds like a wonderfully spiritual experience to spend some time becoming self-sufficient, really figure out what you love about life and what there is to be appreciated about life. Like, this sounds great.
Oh, yeah, I definitely don't want to stop with the music, but having just kind of picked that up really about a year before going back to university, I don't think I'm at a place where I can do that professionally or really make any money from that. With the job search that I've been doing recently, I've actually been falling back on like game design and esports stuff to kind of try and bring my background into it a little bit. I don't know if I'll have much luck there. I mean, not so far, but I keep trying, right? So yeah, I definitely don't want to stop playing drums, which is what I do, but it's not like financially viable. I don't think.
I see. Okay. I mean, you know more about the industry than I do, so I'm sort of super. I'm excited about your future, Flame, but I'm also worried about it.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about it?
How do I feel about it? So it's well, the thing that comes to mind is when I was in Portugal recently, like I had some kind of a massive emotional outpouring or some such thing. It kind of felt like the dam broke, the floodgates were opened, and it was like perhaps quite a lot of repressed emotion that I'd been holding for a while, and it sort of felt like I'm close. I can sense like freedom on the horizon finally. I'm actually getting close. And it was just, I cried for like 2 hours or something and sort of reflected on my entire past getting up to this point. I thought about my mother who passed away and things and just thought, oh my God, I might actually make it. I never really thought I would live this long, let alone actually possibly make it to where I've been trying to get. So I feel there's a lot of emotions tied up with it. I thought about the whole thing where I was concerned that maybe I was just trying to fulfill an emotional void instead of this being what I really want. I don't think that's the case. From the reflection that I did, I think I would still be moving towards this if I were in a relationship right now. I'm not in a relationship at the moment. I thought, is it somehow related to that? Then I realized, well, even if I was in a relationship, you still have to try and make the best practical, real world decisions possible. And I'd still be looking to try and do something similar because we still have the same problems to deal with. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Yeah, dude. Is there anything I can do to help you? Any questions that you have? I'm glad you came and shared your story with us, but I'm curious. Sometimes people are looking for some kind of help or have a question answered.
Yeah, I'm not sure really. Can I think for a second?
Sure.
I don't know exactly. No.
Yeah. So then I'd say Flamed. Then I'd say good luck. I'm excited for you. It does sound to me like you've done a lot of the kind of like cautionary emotional work of like, okay, am I doing this to fulfill an emotional void? But it sounds to me like you're just really discovering a love for something and you want a sense of freedom and you want to be able to subsist off the land and that'll like feel fulfilling to you, right? To not be a part of this system that has treated you poorly. And to really connect with nature and connect with yourself and like, that sounds great, bro.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best. I have a favor to ask you though, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd love to like if you could keep us posted, like 6 months from now or a year from now, like where you are and what you're doing. Either post on our subreddit or, I guess like just give us an update. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep you posted, Dr. K.
All right. Thank you very much, Flamed.
Thanks for having me. Take
care.
Bye.
All right. I think we're going to have to wrap up for the day. Tech Teller, you want to say anything before we wrap up?
Nope.
Okay.
Good.
Take care. So a lot of good stuff that we talked about today. I feel like this last Flame, like takes the whole Touch and Grass campaign to the next level. It's like next year, for 10,000 points, start a permaculture installation with fish and hydroponics and build your own house and make your own farm. I mean, that'd be cool. Like, so if we ever really want to start, a cult, we'll reach out to Flamed and ask him to set up our, off the grid farming and whatnot. Did y'all see? I saw some video debunking basically all these videos except for primitive technology. Did y'all see that? I thought it was really interesting. Yeah, so, I just to kind of wrap up. So a couple things to consider. First of all, it's awesome to be a part of this community. And like, what I really loved about today is being able to connect with, a handful of people in our community, hearing about what they struggle with. I'm so optimistic and impressed with people. Like, even people who struggle seem to actually be pretty awesome people, right? So we had one person who was sort of 39 years old, struggling, what sounds like on a daily basis, but is actually married and has been working out for a month and things like that. Like, that's what makes me happy, is that even the people who struggle actually have wins, if only you're able to realize it. The challenge is that oftentimes we can't see this part of ourselves. So we can teach as much as we want to on the internet, but at some point, your own cognitive biases are going to get in the way of you seeing your progress. And we kind of saw it with our first caller who had anxiety, where like, you don't know whether even your lack of progress is actually a manifestation of your low self-esteem. You think to yourself, oh, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm not getting anywhere. But that is actually because your self-worth is so low that you're not even able to see the progress that you're making. And so those kinds of cognitive biases are absolutely why we actually developed a coaching program. And this is like important to understand, because you can learn about a lot of stuff, but in order to see your blind spots, like, you can't see your own blind spots, which is why it requires, honestly, interaction with other people to facilitate that. Now, we can get y'all can get this interaction sometimes in places like Discord, sometimes in places like subreddit. But if you're really focused on kind of like, a program where you sign up for something and the goal is to have 37% more purpose in your life at the end of 8 or 12 weeks, which is ballpark what our coaching program does, like to feel more in control of your life, like to actually sort things out, that's why we have it. So it's tricky, right? Because seeing your blind spot, sometimes that's what it takes, is like even a brief conversation where someone has like I never realized this. And once you realize it, a lot of stuff starts falling into place. We see that too, where people will be struggling, and then like week 11, they come in and they're like, by the way, I did all that stuff. I moved out, I took care of this, and people just start like getting their life in order. And so that whole process of understanding yourself, understanding what holds you back, being blind to what holds you back, discovering what holds you back, and then leveraging that knowledge to transform your life is absolutely what we're about. And that's the goal of our program. Couple of other things to keep in mind. If you're not ready for that degree of, okay, I absolutely want to transform my life, or transform sounds big. We actually don't transform people's lives in coaching. We help them get on the right road, and then over the next couple of years, you'll transform your life. But if you're not ready for even that degree of commitment, and you're not really interested in that, or there are other kinds of shortcomings or challenges that you face, there's a lot of other stuff too. So I'm a huge fan of the Touch Grass campaign. I personally been participating with it as well. And it's just a good opportunity to connect with other people from our Healthy Gamer community, as well as like get out and start doing stuff. Like touch grass, hug a tree, find 5 different kinds of leaves. And like the goal is to get like looking at the sky during the daytime, looking at the sky during the nighttime. Y'all can check that out. I think there's a command, touch grass. And so, we want to help y'all in terms of education. We want to help y'all understand yourselves better. We want to help y'all get out of the 4 walls where your technology is and your screens are, and to really reconnect with nature a little bit, which is what this guy is doing, right? We're not asking everyone to go to that degree of commitment of like, roll the dice with Dogecoin and then go off the grid with permaculture, solar panels, and subsistence farming. For those of us that are like not ready for that kind of thing yet, right? So I grow some of my own herbs and stuff, but and have grown some stuff in the past, but still use groceries. For those of y'all, please join the Discord and start, stepping into this stuff a little bit. Okay, so who are we? We're gonna have to skip meditation because my roommates need to be picked up, and I can't be late. But we got that last caller, hopefully, which was good. Who do y'all want to raid? Iron Mouse? Okay, let's raid Iron Mouse. Done. Oh, there's someone, Pondalimp. Okay. What is Pondalimp doing? Okay, Pondalimp is making music. Does that make that sound good? I gotta go pick up my roommate's chat. My roommates get really cranky when they don't get picked up on time. All right, y'all, take care. We'll see y'all on Monday. Have a good weekend.